This is Tim Albright with AVNation doing an SCN Hall of Fame special. With me today is another entrant, another inductee, Mr. Jon Sidwick. He is currently from CollabTech. Welcome, sir.
Hi, Tim. How are you doing? Great to meet you.
I am doing well. Congratulations on getting into the SCN Hall of Fame this year.
It's fantastic. Really a great privilege, really honored.
And you're going in with a lot of really great folks as well. Some of them we've already talked to, so we'll kind of get, depending on when we kind of publish this, depending on which one you've seen already. So I want to start with this, and I say that you're currently with CollabTech, and that this is we'll get there eventually. You made some changes in the midst of COVID this year. You changed not necessarily careers, but you changed companies. Something else that you're involved in, and that's been the leadership at AVIXA. Currently, you are the vice chair of the board of directors. My understanding of the way that works is that you will become the chairman of the board of directors. But talk for a second about your involvement with AVIXA and the importance of that, not just for your career, but also for the industry.
Yeah, I kind of picked a great time to be chairman, haven't I? Next year, it's going to be it's going to be one of those years. It's going to be the best year to pick, or it's going to be one of the not so best years to pick. But seriously, AVIXA is an amazing association, and I've been involved. Must be nigh on 20 years in one way or another. I mean, I was involved in the European Council. I've obviously been heavily involved in supporting AVIXA through the events, but the last 10 years or so, I started being on the LSC, which is the Leadership Search Committee, which helps form the leadership. And then I was very lucky to actually be voted onto the board itself 4 years ago. And I mean, now there's no more important time now for the association. I mean, we're in a massive, massive world of change. And I think what I love about being involved in AVIXA is that we can help support the industry through that change. And for many, many years, AVIXA has been fantastic at creating incredible trade shows, great learning, standards, all the things that help our industry really deliver the solutions that we've got. And actually more latterly, building more of a story around exceptional experiences. But boy, oh boy, in the next few years, we've got to help the industry navigate. And that's not just the events industry, which at the moment obviously has a great deal of stress, but I think the whole industry. So our task is to do whatever we can to support the industry. And the industry's given me a great career for too many years to count. So it's great to be giving something back to it.
Absolutely. All right. Well, let's take a step back, and let's. You mentioned the fact that you changed companies, and you 20 some odd years ago, you were with Maverick, and at the time, Maverick was a projector distributor there in the UK. And let's just say that you've grown it a little bit, or you helped grow it a little bit. You and a pretty impressive team. But 20 years ago, did you imagine that Maverick would end up being what it was when you left?
I know. I mean, I was with Sharp Electronics for 11 years before then, and I was selling OHP panels when I started in this industry. So that's how far I go back. And very large projectors with very low ANSI lumen, and I'm sure many people will remember those. So when I walked into Maverick, I had 7 people just selling projectors, and I do like going to businesses which need to find a direction. And it's a great stage of a business when really I hadn't formed a direction. We actually started buying plasma screen companies, plasma screens, and had no idea what to do with them. And we started a company alongside Maverick called Plasma Screen Company. Still a strong business now called PSCO, part of the Midwich Group. And we had Maverick along the other side doing projectors. And over a period of time, that business started to grow, and we started to grow with the market. I remember big waves like the education wave, and then we started to move into Europe. We got purchased by Tech Data, and that enabled us to grow even further. So we ended up being this multinational, large company, which touched almost every part of people's work life, and also the education, entertainment world as well. And going back to your question, which I know I'm waffling now, but I had no idea that the market would grow in the way it has grown, but also that we can enable our business to grow along with our partners.
Well, let's talk about some of those evolutions, because Maverick, not just the various offshoots that you had, like the plasma system, but also you guys were some of the first to go into different countries and then different regions. And then eventually you kind of saw, at least it appears, the evolution into unified communications. And so Maverick, rolled up an entire UC, not just strategy, but also an entire UC division to help serve that market and to get into obviously the traditional AV dealer market, but also into the IT space.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, the way I look at the markets and the businesses is there's kind of the world's built, or the market's built on a number of waves, and it's finding, the trick is to find the right wave to be on. I've often been on the wrong wave, by the way, and that's not a nice place to be. But I don't mind taking those risks and looking to the next wave. And we've done it many times. We were the first distributor really to heavily invest into the education market at one stage. And that's before really technology and education in the classroom, or in every classroom, was something that nobody really had thought of. So we've done that quite a lot, and we certainly did it with plasma screens, as I mentioned earlier on. Going back about 5 years ago, I realized that AV was becoming, standard AV is a great business, but that's not the way the world was going to communicate and collaborate. And there was certainly a growing need. And we'd all talked about video conferencing for many years. But suddenly, I mean, what was the pivot point in this one was Microsoft coming up with a product called Surface Hub. And I remember, I think 2015 at ISE seeing this product and said, right, the world's about to change. When a company like Microsoft are going to be involved in a sector like the meeting room space, that's a big signpost for the industry. So we doubled down massively on that, and we built actually a business that's seen by the world and still recognized, and Maverick's still a great business around this, around the unified comms piece. And what we did, I think we married three things together. We married deep expertise around AV. So we had teams that understood the audio visual side of the meeting space. We have great ability from the tech data perspective around IT. So that platform software play, we could bring that into play. And then we added to this new UC collaboration talk track, working with companies like Logitech, as well as the platform players like Microsoft. So Logitech, Dell, Lenovo, HP, what were traditionally seen as IT brands, which now, if you fast forward 5 years, are the most important brands in the meeting room space.
Well, and they've also become some of the most important brands in the AV space as well, right? Because some of it's due to you guys and Maverick, is the recognition of companies like Microsoft as an important player in those spaces for folks, here, just here in the States, but also globally for the AV spaces as well.
Oh yeah, I mean, Microsoft now their device range has grown dramatically, so they're now known as a device company, but they've also have strong links into the other devices in the meeting space. Teams accreditation is the must-have accreditation for people that create devices for meeting rooms. And now the talk track, the talk track has changed dramatically. The talk track has moved away from feeds and speeds, anti-lumen, how you mount and how you move signal around. It's moved to digital workflow and how people communicate and collaborate. And our job, I see like moving on to where I am now, and also I think from a Maverick perspective as well, is we're kind of digital workflow enablement companies. Now, that kind of sounds really weird and grand, but our job is to take a digital workflow talk track into the channel and enable devices to sit along that workflow. And that's from products such as Microsoft Surface Hub. I now have a Microsoft Duo that I'm playing with. This is phenomenal. That's a meeting room in your hand, and it enables you to walk through any stage of your day and have an ability to be on a meeting room. And with proximity join, I can transfer a meeting I'm on here onto my screen in my office, or if I'm in the office, my home office, or if I'm in a real office, which doesn't happen too often at the moment, I can transfer it into a meeting room space. And giving people the ability to work seamlessly with great fluidity across different devices in different spaces, that's what we do, and that's quite phenomenal. That's a big change to where we were only a few years ago, and now it's possible. And it's possible because of we now live on a platform rather than the device first conversation.
Well, actually, you helped me grandly. I'll get into the next question, which is, talk for a second, based on your expertise with Maverick and now with Collab, is the move, and it wasn't a huge move. It was for some people that misunderstand, but that move to setting aside a space in the home now for working from home, or working, hybrid, where you're at home some days and you're not, those not just the devices, but also the expertise and the best practices now we have to apply at home. How have you and your team been able to communicate that to the users?
Well, I mean, it's been a massive change for people, and I think we all remember the days back in March for most people in most countries when suddenly we shifted from the work environment to the home environment, and we weren't ready.
Yeah.
I mean, some people were. I mean, I'm used to working from home, so I had a reasonably strong setup at home, but most people didn't have the space correct set up. They weren't in the right environment. They certainly didn't have the right equipment. Most people were just using laptops. What we've seen now is a complete change in people's attitude about the investment in workplace enablement. So homework enablement, and it's an extension of the workplace. It's slowly coming through, but we at Collab Tech Group. So Collab Tech Group, our logo is, our motto is to help people work better together, and it's helping people enable them to work. And home environment is certainly one of those areas. So we actually do a lot of spend time training people with channel programs on how to work at home. And that's not just how to use your device, but how the device should be set up, best practice, things like eye-level cameras, better lighting, things that are relatively simple to do, but a lot of people are still not aware of. But that also goes through to how you should run your day as well. Some cultural and home tips and habit tips about how people should work.
Well, let's kind of talk about that move, because you did. I'm not going to say it's an interesting thing. I will say it's an interesting thing during these times. After 23 years, you left Maverick, and it wasn't an immediate jump. It wasn't like, oh, I'm leaving here to go to here. You just said, you know what, I'm going to take a slight break. You did that in May, my understanding. So a good month and a half, 2 months after all of us were locked down, and then you joined Collab Tech Group. So talk about those two separate instances in your life where the kind of the kind of the end of the road for you when it comes to Maverick, but also where you saw your next adventure.
I mean, it's it was an interesting time to do it, but I read something in the papers the other day which I love. The Chinese symbol is a 2-character symbol for crisis, and 2 sides to the symbol. One of the sides is danger, and we've certainly seen in the crisis there's danger to people, which is not good at all. There's danger to businesses. There's a lot of danger in the world at the moment. The other side is actually can be read 2 ways, like any Chinese character. One is opportunity. Yeah. And I think we all know there's a lot of opportunity out of the danger and the change that we're seeing. And the other one is actually change. It's a point of change. So I kind of think there was no better time for me to make a move, because I could have stayed at Maverick for another 10 years. It's an amazing business. It'll continue to be a great business. We knew effectively what the strategy was for at least the next 5 years or so. But I like building things that are different, and I like living in that kind of early stage of evolution of businesses. And there's no better time to try and sit in the business and work out what the future is than during the current time of danger, but with the opportunity to look at change. And it's been a big move for me, but it's one that, and I think I mentioned this to you before, is I'm not the youngest person in the meetings that I'm in now. I'm most probably the oldest. So if I want to spend the next X years throwing myself at new challenges and also things I've not done before. I've worked in retail, so I've sold AV as a reseller. I've worked in the manufacturer, so I've sold to the channel. I've been now a distributor. I just wanted to try changing to move to a service-based industry and see how I can add value to what is a rapidly changing market, and support the change that the market needs, and build hopefully a good business in the process.
Yeah, absolutely. And wrap up here, John. I would be remiss if I didn't ask you, just based on not just the fact that you are now in the SCN Hall of Fame, but just kind of you mentioned you're no longer the youngest person. I'm no longer the youngest person in meetings. Where do you see the next 2 or 3 years? And I used to ask people, where do you see the next 5 or 10 years? I think 5 anymore, especially in the current environment, is a bit of a fallacy, to be frank. I stretch when I say 2 years. I mean, I'm comfortable asking the next 12 to 18 months. So maybe that's what we'll do, is we'll say, John, where do you see us in the next 12 to 18 months? Maybe even as we get into 2022.
think ultimately, some point in the next 6 to 12 months, we will be actually implementing the change that we've just started to see happen. I mean, this hybrid world that we're now working in, we're not going to go back to the old world. And this is so much opportunity. The opportunity for an industry that is built on communication. Our job is to communicate. We provide communication tools. There is no bigger time in the world that great communication is more necessary. And I said, we're never going to go back to where we were before. I'm talking to so many areas of industries and different industries that are deploying solutions. So think of things like compliance in banking. How do people in banking ensure compliance when people are working from home? And they're not going to go flooding back into cities. So they need AV solutions and services to ensure that products are deployed correctly so they give fantastic experiences, but also compliance. That's an area of the business that I hadn't even thought of before this came along. Helping companies work better in conversations about people, process, space, and technology and data. The 5 tenets, we used to just talk technology, but we straddle that people, process, space, technology, and data. And we've got the capability to work with companies and helping them make them that move into digital workflow. And I keep on going back to that digital workflow environment and helping people actually work better as companies and ensuring that the AV experience that they work in is really superior. And it's also, I know, going on a bit, but digital signage. Events, you think of events and the AV that's going to be deployed in hundreds of or thousands of micro events rather than macro events. Yeah. We're working with things like OBS and Teams to help companies to communicate with their team members more easily, but more effectively and more efficiently and more quickly. Yeah, almost everything you can think of has got some opportunities. It's going to be slower in things like, obviously things like transport, airlines, that's going to be slower, but all these things will slowly come more quickly to us and have a ton of opportunity attached to them. I'm really excited, as you can tell. I don't think it's been a bad time for AV. I think we've always been in front of the game. And from an Avixa perspective, we're going to work hard on being change agents and supporting change. And from a CollabTech perspective, we're going to add services and solution sets just to help in terms of help the channel keep up with the opportunity.
All right, very good. That'll be a good place to stop. Jon Sidwick, thank you so much from CollabTech, also from the Avixa Board of Directors. Congratulations again on making the Hall of Fame for SCN for 2020. Somebody wants to get a hold of you or CollabTech, how do they do that, sir?
Go by the website, it's the easiest way. Go through collabtechgroup.com or just LinkedIn with me. I love a LinkedIn conversation.
All right, Jon Sidwick from CollabTech Group. For us, for AVNation, you can buy our website, avnation.tv. That's avnation.tv. Find programs like this and a host of others, including our 2 weekly programs. AV Week looks at the commercial side of the AV industry, and Resi Week looks at the residential side. So all that and more at avnation.tv. That's avnation.tv.